GM everyone, and welcome to this CodeHawks kickoff. This is for Gamma Strategies, and it is currently live on the CodeHawks website. So if you all want to find out about this competitive audit, then head over to the GitHub, to the CodeHawks page. And I'm just going to ramble on for a second while a couple of people trickle in before I hand over to our wonderful, wonderful guest. And I'm going to introduce myself very briefly. I am Kira Nightingale, and I am a senior smart contract engineer and instructor at Cyfrin. Can't speak today for some reason. And yes, so like I said, today we're going to be running through Gamma Strategies, competitive audit, and they have built the new Perpetual Vault Protocol, and it is a decentralized finance system that enables users to engage in leveraged trading on the GMX decentralized exchange, and it aims to simplify the process of managing leverage positions while providing additional features such as automated position management and risk mitigation. Oh my goodness, I really can't talk today. I don't know what's going on. So a couple of very quick housekeeping items that I wanted to mention before I, as I said, hand you over. And I'm basically just going to be walking through the top line of the README of the GitHub repo that is linked on the CodeHawks page. So if you want to see any of this information afterwards, then just head over to the CodeHawks page, and then you'll be able to click on the GitHub repo link where all of this information will be. But the prize pool is $50,000, and that is split up among highs, mediums, and then lows as per usual. This starts on today, so it's already live, it's already going. So I hope you have all been starting to read through, and it ends on February the 25th at noon UTC. The number of lines of code is 1,910, and then I've read to you already a little bit about the protocol, and obviously we have our wonderful guest BP to walk through you in a little bit more depth, as you know, I only read out from the repo. And I think that's pretty much everything. Oh, if you have any questions during the live stream, then chuck them in the comments section of this video, and then we will be able to get to your question, and I'll interrupt our lovely guest to ask your questions for you. And then if you have any afterwards and you're not sure where to leave them, then you can just leave your questions in the Cyfrin Discord, where we'll be able to triage your questions for you, get them over to the Gamma Strategies team, and get all of your questions answered. And so that is enough from me, enough rambling, and I will now hand you over to our wonderful guest, BP. So introduce yourself, and away you go.
Sure. Great. Thank you, Kara. So I'm BP from Gamma. I'm the main founder of this project, and originally we're a liquidity management protocol. So we manage liquidity on Uniswap v3 and now v4. But for this particular contract, it's sort of a change in our core product. We're creating a trading vault on GMX Perpetual Protocol. We have a similar protocol to this on our web app.gamma.xyz. You could see our perpetual positions. We're managing perpetual positions on Hyperliquid. However, this one would be specific to the GMX protocol, which has its own idiosyncrasies and different features. Yeah, that's pretty much about me. I see some comments in the comment section that people can't find the GitHub repo. I would suggest joining the Discord, and because it seems like other people were able to see the GitHub repo. So if you're not able to find it, maybe you could ask somebody in there. But it should be available to view for everybody. But yeah, that's pretty much it about me, and happy to walk through the code base or anything like that. Oh, should I start that now?
Yeah, you can go ahead and just share your screen and then walk through the code.
Okay.
I will need to submit your screen though.
Okay, let me just see. Okay. So I think a lot of you probably got access to this README. I would suggest going through the README to get like a high level overview of what it does. Essentially, it's a long short vault where you can only manage one position at a time. So if it's either ETH 1x leverage, ETH 2x leverage, or ETH 3x leverage, or any other asset, but only one asset at a time, only one leverage at a time. And one thing to keep in mind is all the long positions. If you're 1x long, it's going to be a spot position because there's no point in paying for funding fees on GMX if you're just going to have a 1x long position. So you'll notice in the contract there's these references to 1x long, and whenever you see that, that's because we're going 1x long spot. Now anything above 1x long leverage, it's going to use the GMX Perpetual Protocol, so it's going to open an actual GMX position. So long as you're going short 1x or it's greater than 1x for both longs and shorts. Hope that makes sense. And so as you go through this, what GMX is, it's an asynchronous system. So you for the way that GMX protocol works is you send a request to the keeper that you want to the GMX keeper that you want to open a position. You set the leverage, set how much you want your position to be, what market you want your position in, like whether ETH market, BTC market, or what have you. And then within the next block or so, the GMX keeper will mint your position. And so the way that one of the biggest things with this contract and where you may see a lot of vulnerabilities is handling this asynchronous system correctly and making sure. I would say like these key invariants here are really close, really important to pay attention to. Like
Sorry,
that
would you be able to zoom in a tiny bit?
Sure. So
That's
these
much
key
better. Thank you.
invariants are probably the main thing that you want to look at, um, because you want to make sure no one is able to steal additional value or get shortchanged additional value by other users coming into the system. I think that's where if you see our prior audit report um, on from Guardian, that's pretty much like a huge point of focus, like total shares consistency. Like the sum of all individual shares must equal the total shares variable in the contract. And also the depositor's share preservation, it should never increase or decrease due to the actions of other depositors. Now, there are exceptions, like anything related to like precision errors, that's considered acceptable, but that's really the main thing. And yeah, so happy to walk through just the overall architecture of this contract. The main contract you'll see here is the Perpetual Vault. This is where really all the core logic is, and it deals with GMX's asynchronous system by by all these different next actions, whether you're going to increase action, the swap action here. So remember how I said for 1x long positions, you're going to open a spot position. So the swap action is really for 1x longs. So if the signal is go long 1x, it'll just take all the USDC in position and then it'll swap it for the asset. And if the signal changes, then it'll swap back to USDC. And so the strategies themselves or the signals that say whether to go long or short, that's all determined off chain. And it's determined by our own off chain bot, which is run via a keeper. And yeah, so the basic functions here would be the users can deposit and withdraw. The deposits are locked for a certain period of time. I think there should be a global variable here that shows you exactly how long the deposit length is. Its lock time right here is 1 week. Now, this may be, I think I specified in the README, it could be as short as 1 day. But I think that in terms of the values that can go into this, what the lock time is, I believe we specified in the README. And in terms of the leverage as well, it'll go no more than 3x leverage. And so, yeah, so the users can deposit, withdraw, and when the share minting actually takes place is not within the deposit function. Because as I mentioned earlier, it's an asynchronous system. And so what we determined is the most fair way is it depends on how much of the total value after the deposit, after the shares go into effect, increases the value of the vault. So you get minted shares based off the increased value, not based off the amount that you put in. For example, so just because you put in, let's say 10,000 USDC and the total vault is worth, 90,000, you won't get automatic 10% of the shares. It'll depend after the position gets put into place by GMX. What's the total increase in total value? And then that'll determine your share amount. And the reason we did that is so that users won't be able to take advantage of differences in price impact, differences in it just led to less vulnerabilities to just handle it that way versus minting the shares based off the current amount that you're depositing. So hopefully that makes sense. And so the deposit withdrawals, these are really the main user interfacing functions. The user can deposit USDC and withdraw USDC from the vault after the lock time is over. And in terms of like the off-chain script, as I mentioned earlier, the off-chain script determines whether to long, short, or close positions, and this is run by our keeper contract. And the main thing here is the signal change. The signal changes. So just to back up for a second, the whole vault is just a long short vault. Our strategies say when to long ETH or when to short ETH, or when to long BTC or when to short BTC, and it's all according to the same leverage. So this is the main function that's being called by our keeper vault. Again, you'll see these references to long one leverage. That just means you're going to run the swap because you're going to go. We don't want to open a perpetual position and pay unnecessary funding fees if you're going to just open if we're going to just go 1x long. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the main aspects of this contract. Now, this run next action, so it's a series of asynchronous actions. So run next action means what we want the next action to be. After the keeper says run this action, go long or go short, then run next action is what actually increases the position on GMX, like depending on what the action selector is. So if it's a deposit action, like the user wants to deposit, then it's going to call the increase action. If there's a signal change and we're trying to increase, go from long to short, it's gonna do any one of these next action selectors that you can see here. You can see that you can increase your position, you could withdraw your position, you could swap if it's 1x long. Settle is pretty much you're taking all the funding fees and you're essentially claiming all the funding fees. So this was also a pretty big vulnerability, window for vulnerability is the funding fees. The way that the GMX contract works is it potentially could lead to one person incurring the benefit of the entire funding fee or paying out the entirety of it, like the last withdrawer would have to pay for the bulk, will get unfairly penalized and pay for the entire funding fee of the vault. And that's why we have this settle action here, is to evenly distribute either the cost of the funding fee if it's negative or the benefit of the funding fee if it's positive amongst all the users in the vault. So if you see the README template, this was one of our first. The other invariants, the fair share of funding fees, depositor in general should not be able to claim more than their fair share of funding fees or pay for more of their fair share of negative funding fees. And so it's really the settle action that is supposed to, mitigate, one person taking the entire benefit or incurring the entire cost. And so, yeah, that's I mean, there's a lot of different areas of this contract. Like we account for potential, what happens if our vault gets liquidated? What happens if if the protocol goes down or certain things like that. So we take into account like the liquidations. There's certain times where there's certain DOS vectors in our contract that we mentioned here. Like we acknowledge there could be issues of DOS from users manipulating the entire GMX market to liquidate a position, or by reducing the collateral sufficiency requirement by making repeated deposit and withdrawal requests. That is something we're going to just take the risk of, because if a user does decide to do this, it's very costly. And so we did make the minimum deposit $1,000 for that reason. And so any DOS related issues from depositing withdrawing would be considered invalid issue. But if you find anything outside of this, where let's say a user can DOS their protocol and do so profitably, or do so by not losing any money at all, then it may be considered valid. But yeah, these are sort of important things to keep in mind. So yeah, and then we have a lot of these utility contracts here. The GMX proxy, this is for any contract functions that interact directly with the GMX protocol. And so, as I mentioned before, GMX protocol is like asynchronous. So you send a request to the GMX keeper, and the GMX will call a callback function. And so this will take into account all the callback functions. So if you want to mint position, um, it'll get finalized in the after order execution um, within the GMX proxy contract. And so that's when, let's say if you want to, let's say the position is currently 1x long and a depositor wants to deposit 10,000 USDC. So the way that it'll go is, the deposit will deposit, and then the run next action will be increase the position that's currently in GMX. And then the GMX keeper will read that, and then once it opens a position, it's going to call the callback function after order execution. Somewhere here it's called after order execution. And then that's where the shares will get minted for the user if it's a deposit action. So depending on what the action is, if it is a deposit action, then the users will get minted shares based off that. And additionally, we have a keeper proxy here. So we have a keeper that runs, sends, calls a run next action command, calls the run command, and you have to pass through market prices. Now the GMX keeper will mint based off the current price that's on the market, but it'll do so based off the prices that we specify here. So what the keeper proxy does is it makes sure that the keeper does not act maliciously in terms of passing through bad prices. And what it'll do is it'll check like the Chainlink Oracle for a certain position, and then it'll say, okay, if it's within the certain threshold, then and it's going to validate whether the price is within the right threshold, and then that's essentially what makes sure to our users that it gives like some additional validation that the keeper is acting accordingly. And so that's pretty much it. I think that's like the high level overview of just pretty much what our contract does. Happy to answer any questions if you guys have any, or go more into depth. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I will just waffle for like 1 minute, just in case there are any questions that people are frantically typing right now. This is the one instance in which my rambling might come in useful. But yeah, thank you so much. That was a very useful overview. And yeah, I'm pretty sure there are no questions. And now apparently all my ramblings run out. This is just not how it's supposed to be, is it?
I mean, there should be more questions, I think, once people go through the contracts. So yeah, we'll be active in Discord, and yeah, it's kind of hard to think of any questions as we're kind of going through this in the beginning. So as you guys probably go through it, I'm sure there will questions will arise. I'm not sure. I think we haven't submitted the prior audit report, there were a lot of vulnerabilities in the prior audit report. So I think we submitted in I think the known issues. I think that's what the guy from Cyfrin told us. So take a look at the known issues if you want to find our prior audit, and then you could double check whether those issues were fully mitigated. Oh, okay, it says they'll have it available within the hour. Okay.
And someone asked, so the question, so 1x long spot position means that we are not using leverage.
Correct. That's why you're using the swap action, and what the swap action does is it uses Paraswap under the hood. So yeah, it essentially means you're just swapping on Paraswap.
Awesome. It doesn't seem like there are any other questions, but like I said at the start, if anyone has any questions afterwards, then you can just drop them in the Discord, and someone will get to them for you. But thank you so much, BP, for joining. That was very useful and very thorough. So thank you. And thanks everyone
Thank you.
else for joining. And I'm going
Thanks a
to
lot,
end
Kara.
this here. You're so welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.